Now I'll talk about positive discourse analysis, which is maybe seen as a sub-branch of or a kind of orientation of critical discourse analysis, and it may be considered a positive orientation of critical discourse analysis. First, I'll introduce what this positive discourse analysis is, and we'll talk about its origin and orientations. It focuses on positive orientations to discourse analysis, where not only the deconstructive but also the constructive activities are required to produce a healthy and useful employment of critical discourse analysis. Deconstructive in a way which deconstructs various texts in order to find the hidden meaning, embedded ideologies, as it is claimed by many critical discourse analysis theorists and studies. But according to the proponents of positive discourse analysis, this probably is not enough. We need to go beyond, and we need to include constructive activity also. By constructive activity, we need to include some alternative discourses. It is not enough to tell that this discourse embeds a certain ideology which is harmful for a certain group. Well, that's the commendable job. But in order to serve a larger agenda to expose the language when it is employed for certain users, but this, as I said earlier, is not enough. It has to give alternative choices. It has to fulfill certain future aims also. And that would make, according to the proponents of positive discourse analysis, that would make the agenda of critical discourse analysis complete. So they suggest that PDA must be a part of critical discourse analysis. Otherwise, all this critical linguistics would not be able to fulfill its so-called or its so claimed agenda of social change. PDA is still a very new field. You will hardly find very few studies on PDA on Google if you try to find it out. And interestingly, there is no entry of positive discourse analysis on Wikipedia so far. So this shows it's at a very beginning stage. Some authors considered all critical discourse analysis is positive because the critique which is being done in critical discourse analysis is probably the first step of positive discourse analysis, and the first step to bring in the change in a society which positive discourse analysis actually aims at. Origin and orientation of positive discourse analysis goes back to Martin's work in 2004, which was later on republished also. And in his work, Martin quotes a more ideological orientation of a discourse analysis based not only on the deconstruction of the language in the service of power, but also to look ways how this can be used to bring in change in the society. As I said earlier, by providing alternative ways to make new discourses. Overall, PDA encourages a kind of reorientation in critical thinking, and with an aim to make our world a better place. And PDA suggests in this regard some interventions also. While analyzing, you should also provide certain constructive suggestions or alternative discourses in order to make new changes. Martin's work was influenced by Kress' work also. Kress used the term design. Design is a kind of intervention which believes in using past agendas and product as a source in setting new agendas for the future. That means you can use the works done in the past or the ideologies proposed in the past to make new ideologies or new studies for the future. In simple words, positive discourse analysis believes in learning from the past instead of reproducing the same thing time and again, what is embedded in the text, what kind of ideologies are usually hidden in the text. It believes in telling us the ways how we could correct those ideologies. In other words, it makes rooms for looking into the redistribution of power without necessarily struggling against it. It just suggests ways to look into power relations and their equal redistribution. Martin also draws a lot on Kress' criticism of CDA, which focuses. Kress believes that CDA focuses only on inequitable, dehumanizing, and some states of affairs, some sad states of affairs, and tries to tell us that this kind of states of affair are embedded in this kind of text, but it doesn't actually provide a positive outlook for the future. This is just a deconstructive activity, but usually CDA so far has been unable to provide a constructive activity, which is the claim of Martin. So this deconstruction, according to him, is not enough. We need to move forward. Therefore, it lacks positive discourse analysis, and this lack of PDA actually cripples our understanding of how change happens for the better across a range of sites. So in order to bring in change in the construction and the making of discourses and providing alternative discourses to underprivileged people, to suppressed people, we need to look for positive discourse analysis. Similarly, Luke also questions other forms of text and also questions the traditional role of critical discourse analysis and recommends that other kinds of documents or forms of text may be brought forward. For example, subaltern, diasporic, emancipatory, local, minority text should be brought forward, should be analyzed, should be introduced by the analyst also to give voice to these marginalized people on earth. This may mark the productive use of power in the face of economic and cultural globalization, and it could benefit the world overall. And then we should also focus on preferred modes of emancipatory discourse, which is actually very useful in creating alternative discourses against those discourses which are usually criticized in traditional critical discourse analysis. Bartlett has also posed certain questions in the conduct of a PDA. It's not simple to provide alternative discourses. We need to look into certain questions while conducting a study on positive discourse analysis. For example, to what extent does PDA consider text external features of the context beyond simply providing an ideological background? So PDA would have to look beyond the ideological backdrop and would have to look deep into text external features also. Then under what conditions are these positive discourse favorably received by the minority groups to which they claim to represent? So we need to look into the voices of minority group in also while developing a positive discourse. Is getting an oppressed minority on board is a sufficient objective without also considering the extent to which alternative discourses have the potential to alter the status quo? We have to look into the quality of alternative discourses also. Just giving voice to minority groups is not enough. We need to look qualitatively and quantitatively into alternative discourses also, to what extent they can actually challenge or change the status quo. Then there is a need to look into the conditions of possibility under which alternative discourses may be produced, taken, and legitimized. That would probably create a healthy positive discourse analysis. And for this, we need a very clear social theoretic discourse approach for explaining and explicating the social context and other relevant factors contributing to the making of alternative discourses. PDA overall can be seen as a subdiscipline and is seen as a subdiscipline by very few researchers in the field. But most of the people agree to the thing that it can serve, instead of a subdiscipline of CDA, it may serve as an orientation or a methodology of critical discourse analysis. So, in short, we can say that PDA constitutes a new approach to critical discourse analysis, which not only criticizes already available discourses, but also focus on providing alternative discourses for positive social changes in the future.